Prophets, gurus, and spiritual leaders. Who do you follow? Who do you listen to? Who do you believe? And what if I told you that there are no false prophets? Maybe that makes you mad. Maybe you suddenly want to shut this video off, but I encourage you to hear me out because I think this is really valuable information especially for this time that we're in, where there is so much information and there are so many teachers out there and so many people sharing their viewpoints and information is so readily available. I'm Washayla Sananda. Thank you for joining me today. A prophet is commonly thought of as someone who is inspired by the divine, speaking the words of God, probably has some sort of direct access to divine consciousness, and then is sharing from that space or from what they're receiving. And then it becomes prophetic. And quite often, these are the types of people that we culturally will embrace and follow and listen to, and they're become bestsellers of books. And yet there are a lot of people who are prophets that are not known or not as popular, as commonly known to the public, but who have wonderful things to say. And then there are also the types of prophets that are the people in our lives, the people that land in teaching roles and really help us grow. And this could be people in our family, it could be relationships that we have, it could be a teacher in school. So these people can show up, or someone in your church. These people show up all over in different places in life and really help you on your journey of growing. A false prophet then is somebody who says that they have this divine information or special connection or special insight, and they share it. And then later it's found that what they've been sharing is not correct or is perhaps not true for you or for the one listening. That would be known as what we would call a false prophet. Also, someone who misuses their position. They've gained some notoriety and gained followers. Sometimes what will happen is there will be a misuse of power or an abuse of followers or misuse of money or things like that can happen. Then they would be probably reduced to the realm of being known as a false prophet. What does that mean to say there are no false prophets? What I'm really getting at is we choose who our prophets are. There are so many people out there speaking, and there's no way that everyone agrees on who the real prophets are and who the false prophets are, or who's speaking truth and who's speaking authentically versus who is being deceptive and manipulative. And we choose to put people on a pedestal when we believe they're in a prophet capacity. And what we do then is we sort of putting someone on a pedestal and revering someone as a prophet is really bypassing our own natural inherent system of skepticism or balancing, like weighing truth versus untruth for ourselves. This is an internal process. We naturally develop skepticism and judgment and a system of balances to check to see if the information that we're receiving is correct for us. And that's an individual thing. So what's true for me is not always going to be true for you. What's true for your neighbor is not always going to be true for you. That's why we have our own internal system of balances, checks and measures to see if the information that we're receiving is actually correct for us to follow or for us to listen to. And when we let someone in so unconditionally and so openly and say, this person is my guru, or this person is my teacher, this person is a prophet, everything they say is right. Everything they say is correct. I'm going to follow everything they say. I'm going to do everything they tell me to do. This is when it gets sticky and tricky because you're bypassing your own natural system of judgment. And this is judgment in a positive way, not judging, oh, you're doing it right, you're doing it wrong, but really your internal, is this correct information for me? Is this the right path to follow? And there is not another individual out there that can tell you without fail what is right for you all the time. You are the only one that can make that decision and that choice for yourself. Therefore, when you're following someone or listening to someone, and suddenly you find out they did something or said something that's no longer in alignment with your own integrity system, and suddenly you cast them out and judge them as a false prophet, well, okay, but they only were a prophet because you chose to see them that way. And I know people that have been so devastated by finding out that the person that they were learning from did something that they didn't agree with, or was misusing funds, or abusing followers, which by all means, I agree, is not an acceptable thing to do in any kind of elevated position. Generally, over time, when we follow someone, we are growing, and that's why we're following them. We're opening up, we're growing, we're learning, we're expanding. That's all very valid and worthwhile, and the reason why we would follow someone, and why we would align with someone, and why we would revere someone, because they have some information, something to share with us that expands us in some way. Hopefully, if it's spiritual, then it's expanding your heart and expanding your understanding, expanding your consciousness and your ability to embody that consciousness and be a better person and be more balanced in your life. However, inevitably, at some point, most people are going to fall off your pedestal, and they're going to do something or say something that you just don't agree with. And at that point, is it worthwhile for you to reject everything you've learned from them? Because if you have to reject everything you've learned from them, then the expansion that you've experienced is invalidated. That's not serving your highest good, because the expansion that you received is the expansion you received. Even if that person has become corrupt, or even if you found out information that you no longer align with, okay, then it's time for you to move on. You've integrated the things that you've needed to integrate it, and you've realized, oh, wow, that human is just that, a human. And I thought that they were above somehow, that I thought that they were in this prophet mode, or a guru, or whatever you want to call it, and that they were not going to succumb to normal human things. There are probably a handful of people in the world that really truly are in that position and have ascended or overcome human temptation. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm saying they're very, very rare. And the point here is to be aware that the information we need to move up and to ascend, to move forward on our spiritual path, is always available. It's going to come through different ways, different people, different places. It might be that you meet someone on the street and get this download of information from them, and they're just a passerby, or just someone that you meet at the subway or something like that. So it might come from unexpected sources, or it might come from an expected source. But what happens over time is you expand and your perception changes. Have you noticed, because I certainly have, that the people that I used to follow, we'll say 10 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, or 5 months ago, somehow, once I receive whatever it was that I needed from that person, oftentimes they fall out of my reality. I don't see their videos anymore. Or if it was someone in my real life, I just stop seeing them, or they stop showing up for me. Generally, that's a sign that they no longer have information for me, because I've moved up on my path. So to be aware, that doesn't make that person a false prophet. That doesn't mean that the information I received wasn't good. It only means that my perception has shifted. What I needed has shifted. And I'm ready to maybe find some different information, or more importantly, go within integrate and find out, well, maybe I'm in a whole different place now. And so sometimes the things that we get out of having this experience with people, and maybe it's a personal relationship where I had this happen in my 20s, where I was in relationship with someone and I believed that the information that he had was really beyond me. He was channeling, and it was incredible information a lot of the time. And sometimes it wasn't. And there was a point where after that relationship ended, I had to filter through and decide, okay, what is true to me and what do I just kind of throw out? And that was such a time of growing and expanding. I did keep some gems, some beautiful learning things, the things that I learned during that relationship. And there were things that absolutely didn't work for me anymore. And there was a time where I was upset with him for allowing me. This is kind of funny, right? I was upset with him for allowing me to put him on a pedestal and view him that way because he fell off that pedestal for me. And in retrospect, looking back, well, he didn't ask me to put him on a pedestal. I chose to do that. And when he fell, I chose to change my perception of him. And that's not his problem. That's mine to reflect on, to understand, and to come to the realization, well, we don't put people on a pedestal. We don't put people above us, because when we do that, there will be a time where they show us that they're really just like us. They're really just human, and they're going to fall off that pedestal. And we're going to say, oh, wow, I was a fool for believing in them. And the truth is, you were not a fool. You were where you were at that time, and you believed what you chose to believe. And then your perception changed and you grew, and maybe they fell out of your life. But ultimately, let's forgive ourselves for believing in who we've deemed false prophets, because we chose to believe that for our own reasons, for our own soul growth at that time. Let's take the gems that we learned from them and let's forgive them. Let's forgive them for letting us down, because they only let us down because we had an attachment to believing that they were a certain way. And if they let us down, then apparently they weren't the way that we were believing that they were. That's still on us, right? That's still on us for having that belief. Maybe they were intentionally deceitful. We chose to believe them. That's still on us. And we can forgive ourselves for that. And we can forgive them for their way of being. And this is a beautiful practice. Again, if you saw the forgiveness prayer that I put out a couple of weeks ago, and thank you for all of the feedback on that. This is something that I believe forgiveness is so liberating. Radical forgiveness of everyone that has done you wrong. Because in the grander scheme of things, we are the ones that do ourselves wrong by our perceptions and our attachments and our needing things to be a certain way. We can forgive ourselves, radically forgive ourselves, and radically forgive the other. And when we do that, that's where the true liberation comes from. And we can even look a step further and say, I'm grateful that I had that experience of the perceived false prophet, because now I can see where I misled myself and I chose to believe in something that's not true for me. And I've grown from it and I've become wiser. And when I can go into forgiveness of myself and the other for that, I expand even more. My heart opens even more, and I can allow people in my life, and I can allow myself to have relationships and accept people where they are and listen to them and appreciate what they have to say and be open, and also know that we don't have to believe the same things. They don't have to always tell me something that I believe is true in order for us to have camaraderie and friendship and love. And when we do this as a practice, this radical acceptance and radical forgiveness, we expand, and we expand in wisdom and connection. People are constantly writing me and asking me, how can I be more connected? How can I connect with community, especially when I'm surrounded by people that are not like-minded? And this is how. It's this radical openness, radical forgiveness, and radical acceptance, and allowing people to be who they are and not have to have the same beliefs. We can still love people when they believe vastly different things. We can still find the truth and the connection and the joy of interacting with other people, even when they're from different places, they look different, they sound different, they behave different, and they believe differently than we do. And this practice is what is really going to bring great harmony and unity and alignment, because sometimes, if you're like me, I have very different belief systems than probably most of the world, the large majority of the world. It can seem very, very unlikely for me to meet anyone that believes the same things I believe. I've given up the idea that I need to meet people and only have interactions with people that believe the same thing. That's a silly notion. I'm unique. You're unique. We have our own unique ways of thinking. We can enhance each other by sharing those things and not needing to see eye to eye on everything. Radical acceptance and not allowing anyone to be a prophet over us, but only to allow whatever comes to us to inspire us to our highest truth, to our highest divinity, to our own God self, to receive that information and allow it to upgrade us, but not need it to come from another person, or not need another person to be the one that gives us that information. We are in a reality where what we believe is projected back to us through other people, through experiences, through interactions, and through life itself, through nature, through through broadcasts like this, and in all different various types of ways. And when something comes at us that really makes us change our mind or change our beliefs or restructure everything, even if it's extremely uncomfortable, it's a gift. It's a gift because we get to grow from it, because we get to open our minds and expand our consciousness and deepen our wisdom and deepen our compassion. And that ultimately leads to greater connection. I saw this documentary a while back. I don't remember what it's called, but it was really interesting. And the way that it went was, there was a man who decided that he was going to pretend to be a guru, and I believe he was Indian. He kind of looked the role, and he put on what we would think of a guru wearing, and I think he grew out his beard, and I don't know, he wore the things that made him look the part, and then he spoke in a way. He wasn't a guru, he was just a regular guy, but he listened to a lot of gurus speak, and he took on the persona of that. And then he went out with some friends or some people that promoted him in the community, and he started gaining followers, and he was doing lots of live offerings, teachings, and sharings. And then he was doing individual mentorships with people, going to their houses, and he gained this very tight group of followers who revered everything he said. And they started having these experiences of transformation and upgrades and activations, and they really started feeling like, wow, I'm really expanding and growing and ascending and having all these amazing things happen in my life. Many of the followers just absolutely adored him. And so he told them that he had to go back to India for a while, and then he was going to come back maybe a few months later. So he left, and then a few months later, he showed up again, and his followers reconvened, and they were in I guess a place where he was going to do a presentation and be on stage. And he showed up, and he walked up on stage, but he was no longer wearing his guru outfit. He had shaved and he was wearing regular Western clothes, and some of them recognized him, some of them didn't. But when they realized it was him, they were shocked. They were, wait a minute, why are you dressed that way? You're our guru. Why don't you look the part? What's going on? And he told the story then of what he had done, that he had intentionally acted as a guru, but he was really a false prophet, and that it was a social experiment to see how he would affect people and what would happen. And he did a very good job in his role, by the way. And so what happened was some of the people in the room got very, 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 very angry. They cursed him out. They were mad. They felt deceived. They felt victimized. They felt like someone that had been so important to them was no longer that person. And they were devastated. People cried, people yelled. And there were other people who laughed, who actually went into, oh my goodness, and I think ultimately what those people were realizing, they forgave him, but they were realizing it wasn't that expansion that I had was not from an outside source. It came from within me. And I chose to let that man be the conduit for me to receive that expansion. And isn't it silly that I thought he was above me, that I thought he was on this pedestal, and here he is, just a regular person like I am. And so those people that really got it and embraced him just as he was, as a regular person, are the ones that internalize that, oh wow, it's all me all the time. And I'm choosing the faces that show up and the experiences that show up in my life that transform me. And I'm embracing them in whatever packaging they show up. And ultimately, that's the lesson here, that it's all you, that you're watching me today. And if this is landing for you and this is speaking to you, this is you speaking through me. This is your higher self sharing this information that is really for you and for you to expand from, because it's you, it's in you. It has nothing to do with me. And just like the guru that showed up for them, they chose that expansion and they believed that it was a guru, that it was this other person having them have that shift. And they expanded because they chose to expand. The people that were angry and walked away and rejected him and felt victimized, that's them as well. It's not because of him. It's not because he did that. It's because that's where they go when someone lets them down. And there's a great learning in that as well. I'm not saying that's wrong. That's the wrong way to be about it, but it's the painful way to be. It's the suffering way to be. And we do have a choice we don't always have a choice in how we feel in the moment. We can shift out of it as quickly as possible if we're suffering, but pain, the saying is, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. You can feel the pain and process through the pain. If you choose to go into suffering, that's the victimization. It's like, I'm suffering because somebody else, or because this thing happened, or because I feel this way. That's a choice. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And to hold on to an altercation that someone has done to us that's caused suffering is to choose to stay in pain. And you're choosing it if you're hanging on to a grievance. Somebody upset you, somebody did something, somebody accosted you, abused you, there was an affront and something happened. And if you're holding on to the pain of that, if you've internalized it, if you've developed victimization and your persona around it, well, I'm this way because that happened. I'm angry because my life is not going the right way because fill in the blank. That's not necessary. And so this reframing and this radical forgiveness concept, you can go in to complete forgiveness of whatever happened, whatever that other person did. And when you can do that and let go of the suffering, that's where freedom comes from. That's how you free yourself from pain, from suffering, from trauma. And I'm not saying it can be done in the snap of a finger. For some people, it can. It can be done very easily. For other people, there is a process to go through. That forgiveness process goes very, very, very deep. And that's my ultimate encouragement for you today, is to look at your life, review your life for, I'm just going to say, quote unquote, false prophets. Who have you put on a pedestal and they fell? And who are you still holding on to a bit of resentment, to a bit of, oh, my life's this way because. And I invite you to reclaim your power back from that person and from that experience and from that trauma. Reclaim your freedom in forgiveness. This will transcend all of the negativity that you felt. This will transcend the suffering. Radical forgiveness, opening your heart again, forgiving that person, letting go of the trauma, is going to have you ascend faster than anything else that you can imagine. I can't think of another thing out there that will have you rapidly progress on your spiritual path and your ability to connect with other people and open your heart and feel love than radically forgiving, totally and completely forgiving all that has gone before, forgiving all who have hurt you in any way. And it might be an ongoing process because life keeps happening. When you can get to that point of forgiveness and then surrendering all of the things that came along with that, whatever the situation, the relationship, the thing that happened, and getting to the point of gratitude, being grateful for the experience because it was one that expanded you, because it developed your wisdom and your compassion, and ultimately your ability to connect with others. When you let go of all that and open again, you will be able to connect more deeply. You will be able to have deeper compassion for people that are in those positions, that are doing that. And you will know how it feels to surrender suffering. That is so powerful and freeing and uplifting and ultimately enlightening. When you can forgive everyone for everything, your heart will open. You will ascend your consciousness, your emotional awareness, your spirit will open, and you will feel more harmonious and more aligned. And so this year, I've noticed I've had an abundance of opportunities to practice forgiveness. They just keep coming. And this is a beautiful thing. I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the expansions. And I want to inspire you to look for these opportunities in your life. If your life is perfectly balanced and peaceful and harmonized and aligned, great. You've probably already done this work. But if not, if you're not open and free and as free as you desire to be, then try it. Who in your life are you ready to forgive? Who in your life are you willing to forgive? What experiences or traumas that have happened in your past are you willing to completely let go of? I'd love to hear about it. Please share your journeys with me. Let me know in the comments, what are you transforming in your life? Who are you forgiving? What are you forgiving? You don't have to share the details. We don't want to out anybody for anything, but what, in a general conceptual way, what are you transforming and where is it bringing you? I'd love to hear about it. And I love to read your comments and reply and respond. And I just love the community sharing aspect of that as well, when we get to see how other people are transforming their lives through these practices. I will end there. I thank you so much for joining me today. I'm WxS&x. You can find my website, WxS&x.com. Join my email list so that you get updates on my videos and retreats and membership opening and all the things that I do. I love you. I cherish you. Namaste.